Yep. Okay, we're going to start off right now. So, friends, a very hearty good morning to everyone and welcome to this session on coaching conversations. It's an absolute joy to welcome you on behalf of Coach Mantra. My name is Arun Baklu, and we have with us two wonderful guests on this call, on this webinar, Mr. Rizwan Sumar and Ms. Monal Srivastava. I'll tell you more about them in a short while. Now, in this session, what we expect is that you will be stimulated with some interesting new insights on coaching. You'll get a very practical, hands-on understanding of how coaching can benefit the organization, especially in this time when we're trying to develop agile leaders, disruptive leaders, resilient leaders. And you will also learn how we can create a culture of coaching in our organization so that it's not only one coach or one person who's doing the coaching, but everyone in the organization is working with a coaching culture. So let me introduce my guest today. I'll start with Rizwan. Rizwan is a very accomplished leader and he's had a career spanning of over 20 years. At this point, he heads the entire operations of DP World in the subcontinent, in India and the subcontinent. And he joined DP World in 2007. And before DP World, he was in the AP Muller Maersk organization, where he grew from a management trainee to become the managing director of Egypt, of India and Sri Lanka, and was selected as one of the top 100 potential leaders in the entire AP Maersk worldwide. Incidentally, Rizwan was also selected in 2010 as one of the top leaders in India by one of the business magazines, as one of the top upcoming leaders in India who was below 40 years of age. Very, very accomplished person. We're very lucky to have him. He has an MBA degree from the Chicago Booth School of Business and a diploma from the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers, ICS, in London. He's also participated in many executive development programs in INSEAD and Fontainebleau and IMD Lausanne. I often joke with Rizwan and tell him that you are the poster boy of wholesome leadership because our 30 years of research in Pragati leadership on wholesome leadership has thrown up certain values like compassion, universal consciousness, and so on. And Rizwan really embodies these. So hearty welcome, Rizwan. It's an absolute delight to be here with you. Accompanying Rizwan in the journey of growth in the organization is Monal Srivastava. She's the regional head, human capital and administration for DP World subcontinent. She's a very business-focused HR professional. I think one of the qualities that we want in all HR professionals is to have a very sharp business focus. And she has that, and she has a deep understanding of people practices in different industries, including financial services, consumer services, marine terminal services, and the public sector undertakings. She has served in companies like UTI Asset Management, Tata Motors, Tata Capital Limited, and Godrej Highcare Limited. She's on the board of the Chennai Container Terminal and CWC NSL. Friends, Monal has a postgraduate degree in management with a specialization in human resources from the International Management Institute, New Delhi, and she also has a BSc in physics and mathematics from Lucknow University. Now, I worked with both Monal and also Rizwan, and I'd like to share with you that they have the very rare quality of combining business and humanism, business and people care. And that's why it's such a treat and such a delight that that you are present with us, Monal and Rizwan, and a hearty welcome to all the watchers, the viewers who are watching this particular program from all over. Someone said, one planet was not looking too healthy and another planet came to this planet and said, "Hey, what's the matter with you? What do you have? You're not looking too well." So the planet answered, "I have the Homo sapiens." And the other planet said, "Don't worry, don't worry. They don't last very long. So you'll be fine soon." But jokes aside, friends, we are passing through tough times. We are passing through very challenging times. But I've always said, and we believe at Pragati Leadership and Coach Mantra, that this is a huge opportunity for us to grow, to up our game, to respond with greater resilience, greater agility, and greater innovation. And coaching makes a big difference. So what I'm going to do, friends, is I'm going to start by asking some questions to Monal and Rizwan, and they will respond. And then we'll throw the floor open for questions from all of you. And we welcome those questions because they stimulate the mind in new ways and new thinking. And my friend Prasan Dangi will transmit the questions from YouTube to us in Zoom, and Rizwan, Monal, and I will respond to the questions. Yeah. So let's begin with a question to Rizwan. So, DP World is a very beautiful company, great company, and it's growing very fast. And I would like to ask you, Rizwan, what is the role of vision and values that of vision and values in shaping a company, global company like DP World? So over to you.
So thanks very much, Arun. Can you hear me clear?
Yes, clearly, Rizwan. Perfect.
Thanks very much for the very kind introduction, very generous introduction. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you and Pragati for all these many years. I have benefited a lot. I have grown a lot with the guidance, from your institute and particularly from you. So thanks very much for having me here today. And good morning, friends. To the question, vision and values, they build the foundation of an organization's culture. They articulate the organization's purpose and goals. So it's critically important that we have this vision very well, formed, but also in terms of the way it's communicated, right? So one of our key values in DP World is to create growth, right? And we did this by truly trying to understand our clients' needs, both met as well as unmet needs, and to also decide who our future customers will be, and then design products and services that meet their needs. As a leadership team, we then co-created a very bold vision. This vision entailed transforming ourselves from being a pure play sea operator, which is basically a seaport operator in that sense. So we have terminals and ports all over the world, almost 80 terminals, seaport terminals all over the world, where ships come in and cargo is essentially exchanged at these terminals, so imports and exports. So our vision was to actually go from a global seaport operator doing very well in their business to becoming one of the largest integrated logistics company. And in India, the vision was to actually become the largest integrated logistics company, operating assets across the supply chain needs of our customers. So defining the need for transformation was also very critically important for us, especially when our existing portfolio was doing very well, Arun. We spent a disproportionate amount of time to communicate this need for change very clearly to the rest of the organization and to align everybody towards this massive change. What have we achieved? In the last 2.5 years since we actually came up with the vision, we started on this journey to acquire and build assets across all modes of transport in India, all kinds of storages for cargo, and to handle all types of cargo. We are a significant player now in the rail, air, trucking, sea transportation. We have storages which actually span across free trade warehousing zones in India, Indian logistic depots, ports, temperature controlled warehouses, domestic cargo warehouses, and to handle cargoes ranging from bulk containers and perishables. We are even trying to build a hyperloop in India, which is essentially a very innovative product. And in fact, there's hardly been any innovation in the last 100 years of transportation, and hyperloop is going to break that record. And we essentially trying to build the hyperloop between Bombay and Pune for transporting both passengers and cargo. In every supply chain asset business, we'll either be number one or number two in India, and that's essentially what the bold vision entailed. So from being a pure sea terminal operator in India 2.5 years back, handling 10 to 12 customers, the team has built supply chain assets that serve more than 5,000 clients in India, all in the span of 2.5 years. So this is what vision and more importantly, the values do to essentially transform an organization per se. Arun.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, Rizwan. And to build such an organization and to have such an ambitious growth plan, ultimately it's people and leaders who really make it happen. So, in the light of this, Monal, I want to ask you, how exactly have you forged the successful people management strategy of the organization? And I want to inform our viewers that DP World is a company that also has got the certification of the great places to work. So over to you, Monal.
Thanks, Arun, and good morning, everyone. I think Rizwan gave a wonderful perspective of how we have grown in the last couple of years, precisely 2.5 years. And as he rightly said, for any organization to be successful, Arun, the people management strategy actually needs to flow from the vision and the business strategy designed to achieve that vision. Last 2.5 years, we have grown exponentially, both in terms of our number of employees. Our team size has grown from 1,200 to close to 3,500 now. Uh, we've gone into a variety of businesses, from being a ports and terminal organization to a logistics service provider. We've added new companies to our portfolio, and with that, on the people side, I think the challenges that we faced was primarily cultural and process integration of these new entities. Plus, because we were moving from being a port and terminal to a logistics service provider, one of our needs was obviously to upskill our people, to build a talent pipeline. So, keeping all that in mind, our focus today revolves around integration of the newly acquired entities, both in terms of cultural integration as well as process integration. In addition to that, the other thing that we have remained very focused on is building a strong leadership team, upskilling our existing resources, and also creating a talent pipeline. What we also realized is to that we definitely need to enhance our employee communication and employee engagement, which would obviously bring in cultural integration and also instill confidence and acceptance of this change in the organization. People need to understand our goal, where we are planning to go ahead with, and that can only happen with a very strong communication platform. So, a combination of all this has been our focus area, or as you rightly say, our people strategy for the last 1.5 2 years.
Right, right. Thank you, Monal. And just building on that response, it's been said that it is leaders who are the creators of new futures, and leaders are the ones who create new realities by engaging with other people, facilitating a vision, and so on. And one of the things about coaching is that it helps leaders to start thinking in new ways. It's basically a process where, through conversation and questioning, we start rethinking things, we start reframing things, re-looking at things, seeing opportunities where we didn't see them before, working on some of the areas that are blocks and so on. So, in the light of what you said, where exactly does coaching come into your talent strategy? And what kind of leaders do you send in for coaching? This is for Monal, just building on what you said about talent strategy for DP World.
So, Arun, in my view, coaching and specifically leadership coaching empowers leaders to do exceptional work. It gives them a perspective on their everyday responsibility. It provides them with free thinking. Sometimes organizations have specific agendas for leaders when they take them towards the coaching arena, and that is to enhance their performance or improve their communication with their peers, with their team members, stakeholders. In our case, on this journey of growth and change, uh, we have taken coaching as one of our initiatives to assist our leaders to be more effective in this journey. I think what I also like to say is that we often view coaching as something which is for leaders who need to improve on either their performance or any other behavioral aspect. But I would say that that's not a correct approach. Coaching is also required for leaders who are good and to help them continue to their good work. So sometimes a reflective session with a coach empowers a leader to fully recognize their potential, appreciate the work that they have done. A coach can also act as a sounding board. For us, therefore, all of this has become one of the key aspects to consider before we put anyone on the coaching journey.
Right, right. Thanks. I'm glad you mentioned this, Monal, because many times people, as you just said, feel that coaching is only for the people who is something wrong with them, or they have to be fixed and all that. But actually, some of the world's best performers, whether it's a Tiger Woods or a Roger Federer or world champions, they also have coaches because there's always a next level. So, to Rizwan, what have been some of the benefits of coaching in DP World? Yeah, and feel free to share your story. And Monal, I'll ask you the same question later on after Rizwan. So, over to you, Rizwan. Sorry, you're on mute, Rizwan. So, you have to unmute. Thank you.
So, in a fast-growing organization like DP World, it's critical to have coaching as a very important intervention because it promotes the adoption and the acceptance of disruption. We're disrupting every day, and more importantly, we need to innovate even more so going forward. Embrace chaos, etc., etc. Right. So, coaching encourages also this willingness to look for answers to questions that were previously unknown. Right. It helps to actually own one's own development as against a prescriptive development in that sense, right?
Right.
It also helps us to bring together solutions for customers in a manner otherwise would have created chaos within such a diverse organization like ours in that sense. And personally speaking, Arun, it also highlights some of the blind spots that one would have essentially, and just being aware of those blind spots helps you to actually be more effective per se, right? It also helps you to, and more importantly so, understand and be aware of your strengths and how you can actually help the team members with the strengths that you actually contribute with in order to achieve the vision and the strategy of the company per se, right? So I think this awareness of your strengths as well as the awareness of some of the blind spots that we did not know about, which people actually perceive, is essentially something that is extremely helpful that coaching brings about.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Rizwan. And Monal, you kind of spearheaded a lot of coaching in DP World. So what has been the overall perspective of yours of these coaching interventions?
Thanks, Arun. So, Arun, in our case, we took a very, very structured approach. So, we started with leadership assessment.
Yeah.
Post that, and which was a very scientific exercise that we did.
Okay. Okay. So, Monal, I think the video is frozen. And so I'm going to go back. So Monal, I'll come back to you until we fix the video thing. And I'm going to go back to Rizwan. So Rizwan, until Monal comes back, there was, recently you were interviewed by Charlene Lee, an expert on disruptive leadership. And so what, according to you, are the qualities of a disruptive leader?
So I think, Arun, the question that I ask our leaders is, what are we doing today that will assist us to achieve what our customers want tomorrow, right? We need to strive. We need to strive for win-win situations all the time, not just for customers, but also all stakeholders of the company, right? And in this process, which is lifelong, the ability of a leader to flex between different roles and responsibilities is paramount. Constant learning from each other and active listening is a key, right? For this, practicing mindfulness, staying in the present moment is very helpful. There cannot be great work we can do on the outside without great work done internally. And it's true also the other way around. I'm also always suggesting to our leaders not to get attached to fabulous financial results and at the same time to also not detest situations when they're not in our favor, right? And when one is centered and at peace with oneself, difficult choices, chaos, dilemmas can be tackled very effectively, right? Which is what a disruptive company needs its leaders to be. We
Wonderful.
achieve equality and are free to choose any appropriate response to situations as they arise. There
Beautiful.
is minimal waste and highest levels of productivity. So
Excellent.
mindfulness training is a very important part of our leadership training in India. And Arun, you and your team have done a wonderful job in supporting us over the last few years on this.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And Rizwan, I know that you are a very serious meditator. You've been meditating for so many years, and at the same time, you're one of the most outstanding business leaders in India. I mean, in terms of financial results, in terms of growth, and the way you handle disruption. So, would you like to share for our listeners who are listening in, how does your mindfulness and meditation help you practically in your role as a leader? We'd be very delighted to hear your personal story about that, and that will really be very, very nourishing for all of us.
Thanks, Arun. And one when one is centered, when one is at in the present moment, and you can call it mindfulness, you can call it meditation, you can call it prayers, you can call it spiritual time with yourself and with the Almighty. You can call it whatever you want, but it's really about being in the present moment, because there is that calmness that comes in, that can essentially help you to understand the complexity around you and to
Beautiful.
make things extremely simple, right? So ambiguity does not sound as ambiguity to a person who actually practices mindfulness, because they see different colors around them, in that sense, right? And they make sense of it, like nobody else does in that sense. So when
Wonderful.
one sees chaos around you, a person who practices mindfulness sees sense and sees a pattern and sees, more importantly, what action one needs to take in the present moment
Beautiful.
in order to actually deal with that chaos, that basically is apparent to everybody around you, right? So this is critically important to deal with ambiguity, to deal with the chaos, as it seems around you. So
Mm.
being centered is very important for leaders. Being in the present moment is extremely important.
Absolutely good. Thank you, Rizwan. And just before I hand it over to Monal, and welcome back, Monal. Good to have you back. I just want to add, building on what Rizwan said, that in Coach Mantra, in Pragati Leadership, in most of our coaching engagements, we start with a foundation of getting people to be centered, developing the consciousness of people, because it is only when I'm conscious and present that I can see the patterns of my thinking, I can see my emotions, I can see how these emotions and patterns of thinking affect my actions, I can see how these actions affect business. And unless I don't see them, as Rizwan said, unless I'm not aware of all these things, I cannot really make the choices to change these things. So, in all our coaching assignments, is a very, very important ground component of building mindfulness, building presence, and building that capacity to be calm, clear, and courageous in times like these. So, Monal, over to you again. Tell us a bit more about coaching in DP World. And then I'll ask Rizwan and you about a coaching culture. So, over to you, Monal.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a network issue, so the
No
call
problem.
dropped. Uh, so Arun, in DP World, we took a. Arun, am I audible?
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
you're very audible. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So in DP World, Arun, we took a very structured approach to leadership development. So we had a leadership assessment exercise which we conducted, which was a very scientific process. And post that, all the leaders, as Rizwan rightly said, they owned their development plan. So they created their development plan and they owned that development plan. Basis that there were training sessions organized, and then we also moved towards giving them a personalized coaching experience. Over the last few months, what we've observed is that there's been people have been working on the areas that they had identified for themselves, and they have also felt a considerable amount of change in in their own behavior and in their own performance basis the structured coaching approach that we had. So that's how we have approached the subject.
Building on that question, I just want to ask Rizwan. See, going further, we'll need a lot more changes, a lot more expansion, more people. How do we create a culture of coaching in DP World? What is your vision, Rizwan, of how do we create a culture of coaching so that coaching becomes a part of life, a part of everyday conversation, and not, okay, I'm being coached now and here's a coaching session. But how do we make it a default way of working, communicating, and interacting in DP World? How would we do that?
So, Arun, coaching is really for me, it's about going from good to great, right? And that's what
Okay.
we aim to achieve at DP World as well. One of our four founders' principles of the company is essentially making others excel, right? And this
Yeah.
is also the driving force behind the culture of coaching in DP World, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is really about because coaching, assists to become more aware of our strengths, and
Yeah.
employees here do not then compete with each other. In fact, they complete each other towards making what it takes to achieve the vision, right? So
Yeah.
it's critically important that coaching is actually imparted to as many employees as possible, so that they all work towards helping each other win. That's the first thing, and then they do not compete with each other necessarily, but they actually complete each other towards what it takes to achieve the vision. So I think
Beautiful.
that's the learning culture, and that's the coaching culture that we would like in DP World. And it's not about then coaching 5 or 10 leaders. It doesn't end with that. These 5 or 10 leaders then essentially would coach or would actually help to promote this coaching culture throughout the entire DP world.
Wonderful.
And then of course, the more people that actually get help in terms of coaching skill sets, then essentially we become a coaching culture in DP World. So, and that's the endeavor that we have essentially to
Very
transform DP World into a coaching
yeah. Yeah. And
culture.
like you said, Rizwan, thanks. One of the hallmarks of a coaching culture is rather than going from telling a person, it goes into inquiry, it goes into asking and inquiring and exploring. And that opens up the whole field of possibilities and innovation, which is so important right now. So, Monal, before we go on to the questions from the audience on YouTube who are watching us, one little question to you. What is your vision of how are we going to make a coaching culture in DP World? Or for that matter, any organization? What are your recommendations?
So, just building on what Rizwan said, Arun, that it cannot just remain with the leadership team. It has to now cascade and go across levels in the organization.
Right, right,
And
right.
what it also means is that leaders need to take the role of coaches, for which they might require certain upskilling, because
Yeah,
it doesn't come naturally to a
true,
lot of
true,
people.
true, true, true.
So that's another agenda that I think we should definitely need to take on,
Sure.
to build a structure where our leaders are equipped to become effective internal coaches.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So
Thank you.
that's
Thank
how
you.
I would like to take this ahead.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so we're doing wonderful on time. We have another 18 minutes to take questions from the audience. So, friends who are watching us, on a note of thanks to Monal and Rizwan for sharing what they shared in response to my questions, it's now time for you to ask your questions. So, put them in the YouTube chat box, and my friend Prasan Dangi will read them and transmit them here into the Zoom call, and then we'll start responding. So, Prasan, over to you. And you can unmute and we can get started. Yeah, and please keep typing your questions in because we will be responding to the questions now. Prasan.
Yeah, so hearty welcome and good morning to everyone. So we are regularly, continuously, we're getting questions from our YouTube audience, and that's really how engaging this session has been. So
Wonderful.
first question is directed towards Mr. Rizwan from Vishal Vyas. So the question is, how as a leader we guide or lead people who have different mindset or come from different culture, and how we constantly keep doing this as it is a leader for a difficult. It's a difficult for a leader. Sorry.
Mm.
No, thank you for asking that question. Leadership is all about passion and it's about responsibility, right? So it's more of a mindset than an authority per se, right? Anyone who has this mindset, can be a leader, and anyone who has the willingness to invest in this mindset is also a leader. And I think that's where coaching also comes in because, if you actually reach out for a learning intervention, both at work, in terms of challenging assignments, but also in terms of, upskilling yourself constantly and in helping to, taking the help of a coach as an example, right? You are investing in yourself to become a better leader, a more effective leader in that sense, right? So as I said, coaching, is definitely a good learning intervention towards that in terms of investing in yourself as a leader. But leadership is all about a mindset than authority.
Yeah, and if I may just add to your response, Rizwan, so if you are anchored in a space that holds all these different perspectives, that is holding all the different perspectives and views, and you're not attached to this perspective or that perspective, but you're more like a bowl, like a container, very present, very peaceful, very detached, then you can easily navigate between these perspectives. So again, it brings us back to what Rizwan was saying: be more mindful, be more present. But that helps you to transcend and hold all perspectives with a lot of ease and grace. Next question, please.
Yeah,
Prasanna.
so absolutely correct. I completely agree with Mr. Arun and Rizwan. So next question is directed towards Monal. So Monal, what are the tools that you suggest for talent mapping to build talent pipeline? This is from Mr. Uresh Rawal.
Okay, so I think what I mean, if I've understood the question correctly, it's about external talent mapping. And how one needs to approach is definitely one. The first thing is to identify your target audience. From where do you want to attract talent? What kind of talent you need? So first step is to understand what is the need of the organization. Second is to understand from where you want to attract that talent, and then it's more transactional in terms of understanding uh, who's where, and then get into the process of talking to people, meeting them, and building your pipeline.
Oh, okay.
Thank
So
you.
now next question to Mr. Rizwan. So the question is, how have you been communicating across to your leadership team that coaching is developmental, then remedial in nature?
Thanks for that question. As I said, coaching is about going from good to great. It's about us being a lot more aware of our strengths, about how we are actually perceived, be aware of our blind spots, be aware of our areas of improvement. But what makes me today and what makes all of us today is essentially our strengths, right? So we learn how to focus 80-90% of our efforts in terms of capitalizing on our strengths and then ensuring that we are able to forge forward. We're able to actually complete each other in a leadership team or in the organization, and we are actually then contributing our strengths towards making the team a lot more effective towards achieving the strategy. So it's critically important that these things are actually communicated as effectively as possible, so that people don't feel that I'm down in the dumps, I'm not a good leader, I'm a laggard, and therefore I need coaching. I mean, that's not the purpose of coaching. The purpose of coaching is to really take you from good to great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very
So
nicely framed, Rizwan.
yes,
That's a
yes,
beautiful
correct.
framing.
So next, I think this will be more for Monal. How do you convince senior leaders to sign up for a coaching?
I have personally not experienced any challenge there. The moment they realize that it is something which would definitely add value to them, then it is never a challenge, because it's for their own development. So if you're able to communicate and convince that it is for your own development and for the greater good, it is never a challenge.
Correct. So now this question I would like to ask both Rizwan and Monal. So have there been any failure stories that you would like to share in terms of coaching within your organization? Because failure is always a learning.
It's a good question. Yeah.
So maybe I can go first, Monal. um, so in one situation, I came across where the chemistry between the coach and the mentee did not work out. Because it's very important that trust is developed. Because you would not want to actually invest in a relationship if the trust building does not happen. And the trust is not just from the coach side, but it's also from the mentee side in that sense. So I think building that trust, and that's how I was able to actually find out what was the real reason why the coaching was not working in this particular case. And so therefore, I think it takes two to tango, as they say. So it's building trust, which is very important. And the trust is also built because one, of course, the coach genuinely wants to help you and wants to assist in your development. But it should also be that you're willing to invest in your own self, right? You're willing to actually invest in this relationship, therefore, so that it actually helps you. And therefore, it is critically important that both parties actually understand that it is to help the mentee, and not to just do a tick in the box from an organizational development perspective.
Yeah. Thank you, Rizwan. And after Monal, I'll also share a little story, a failure story. So
So I think another example that I can state is when you start a coaching conversation, you start with some premise. You look at some development areas or things that you would like to work on. As the conversation progressed, the coach as well as the coachee, they realize that there are other issues as well which need to be addressed. And that point in time, the acceptance by the employee that it is an issue is something which became a problem area. And that is when the coaching conversation did not go the right way. I would not say it was a failure, but yes, it did experience some hiccups and challenges.
right. Thank you, Monal. And I'll share one. When the top leader of a company identified someone and felt that there's something wrong with this person and he needs to be fixed, he needs to be set right or remedied, and then you bring in a coach, uh, because the whole framing of this whole thing is that we have to fix this person, something is wrong with him. We start off on the wrong note and there is huge resistance. And then you go through the motions of coaching, but deep down there is a resistance and resentment that, I really don't want to be coached. So I think the coach has to be very, very conscious, very careful that the leader, the HR person, and the coachee are absolutely on the same page in terms of what Rizwan said, that this is moving from good to great. This is to take you to a higher level. And I'd also like to share with our viewers a simple thing. Coaches are not there to fix anyone. You can't fix, there's nothing wrong with anyone. We are all learning. All of us are learning. So we're not here to fix. We're not here to help even. Help means, oh, I'm going to give you something that you don't have. No, hello, we have everything. Here, coaches are here to serve. You are whole, I am whole, the coach is whole, we're all perfect wholeness, and we are going to expand that wholeness. We're going to expand that joy and greatness which is latent in us. Next question, Prasann.
Yes. So this is I would like to ask or direct to Mr. Rizwan.
Yes,
So
please.
if in a company of odd around 100 people or a growing company or some startup, how important to have leadership coaching sessions from the start, actually, I believe.
So, ideally, the entire leadership team including the CEO of the company, should actually be part of a coaching program. Simply because there are many things that the leader also has to be aware. The CEO of the company also has to be aware of how his leadership team or her leadership team essentially perceives him in terms of leading, as well as the feedback the other way around. So ideally, it should be the entire company, the entire leadership team essentially that should start off on a common coaching program per se. That's at least my belief, for a company that just starts off.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rizwan. Yeah.
Thank you, Rizwan.
Yes,
So one
Prasanth?
one last question I would ask to everyone.
Yeah.
So what is the greatest benefit of having a coaching culture?
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the greatest benefit? So, Monal, would you like to go in first?
Uh, yeah, thanks, Arun. I think it helps the organization to move towards a learning culture and openness to accept and openness to learn.
Right. Okay, Rizwan, your turn.
It promotes accountability, especially in a company which promotes entrepreneurship. Risk taking becomes very important. Taking accountability becomes very important. Being comfortable with various outcomes that actually come out of decision making is very important, because we all have our egos, right? We don't want
Yes.
to fail, right? We don't want to be seen as failing, right? But risk taking comes with that outcome as well, and so therefore embracing failure. And I think one of the questions we actually answered in this session was also about what did we learn from our failures, right? So we have to encourage our leaders to take those risks, to take those decisions, and be actually okay with failures once in a while, as long as we don't repeat it again, as long as we learn from it.
Yeah.
This is how I see at least.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, thank you for your response. And building on what Monal and Rizwan said, I would say it, in addition to the learning and accountability and openness to risk, it also builds a huge amount of trust, intimacy, and engagement. Because I think when people feel heard, they feel that there is someone who will listen to me, who understands my feelings, who understands my perspectives without judging, in a safe psychological atmosphere, I think it does wonders for engagement, your sense of belonging, your sense of feeling included, your sense of being cared for, and therefore listening and empathy, which is a very important part of coaching, becomes the foundation for building a culture of trust. And when you're feeling happy, when you're feeling respected, when you're feeling loved and cared for, and you're safe to play and experiment and take risks, innovation, engagement, initiative, innovation really goes up very high. So I hope whoever answered the question, I hope you got enough rich reasons to build a culture of coaching. And Prasann, we have another 3 minutes, so maybe one more question we can take, and then we'll
We
get
are
into
still
the
getting quite a
closure.
lot of questions, but yeah, we are getting questions quite a
Yeah.
lot. So
So sorry to
uh,
interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, but
yes,
friends, all your questions we're going to note down. So if you put in your email ID there in the YouTube chat box, we will make sure that Coach Mantra will get back to you with a response, and if required, we'll write to Monal and Rizwan. So don't worry if your questions haven't been answered yet. We are happy to answer them. Just put in your email ID and put in your question, and we will make sure it's answered. Last question, please, Prasann.
so it's very relevant in today's time, actually. So the question is from Manas Bhattacharya, and he has
Yeah.
asked, how do we create coaching outcomes sustainable in dynamic business challenges after COVID-19? Because COVID-19 has really disrupted quite a lot.
So help us understand the question. How are we going to create sustainable business responses after COVID-19? Is that the
Yes,
question?
yeah, after COVID-19. So
Okay.
I would
Okay.
request Rizwan and Monal to share their
Sure.
thoughts.
Sure. So Rizwan, would you like to go in first?
I think what the last 6, 8 months has done is, thrown up a lot of uncertainty, right? Business continuity is an issue, a lot of uncertainty in terms of, how things will actually play out, how will actually business run, how will employees come together to actually, run the business. So this uncertainty is something that people actually accept in very different ways. And as leaders, we need to make sure that we're very empathetic towards our employees, towards our fellow leaders, to ensure that they feel supported, they feel nurtured, they feel cared for. Wellness is very important. Mental health is critically important, because sitting out here, I don't know what our co-workers and our colleagues are actually feeling and going through, keeping our business going every day in that sense, right? So everyone is actually in a different situation, and so the level of empathy and the active listening, the caring has to actually go up tremendously, because if this does not happen, we will essentially really do big discredit as leaders, and as co-workers and as colleagues to our fellow employees in the company. So the level of empathy is very important. Embracing uncertainty is very important. Dealing with ambiguity is very important. Being resilient is very important. And then supporting each other is even more important.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Rizwan. Monal?
Uh, to add, I think acceptance of change, whatever was considered to be a norm, an accepted norm, a lot of those perceptions, those things have completely changed, and we are all talking about new normal. So I think embrace first is definitely to be able to understand the change and then embrace that change. I mean, that's more from an individual's perspective, not from a organization or a corporate's perspective. What Rizwan said is very, very true for any organization. But for an individual, I think embracing change, accepting that it's indeed a VUCA world. Arun, in your
Indeed, indeed. Good. So, thank you, Monal, and thank you, Rizwan. So, I'd just like to conclude our session by thanking uh, Rizwan and Monal for your time, for your wonderful sharing, for sharing your insights and ideas. I'd also like to thank the team from Coach Mantra and Pragati Leadership, Pramod, uh, then Prasann Dangi, Nivedita for the setup, from DP World, Hina Sharma, and Deepti Matela for organizing, helping to organize this. And also big thank you to all our viewers who are watching this, and we look forward to welcoming you again. This is a series of leaders and the CHROs on coaching and conversations. So look out for the space. We're going to come back. And to all of you, we will send you a free checklist for well-being in COVID times and post-COVID times. So with that, thank you, Rizwan. Thank you, Monal. Thank you, everyone, for a most challenging and interesting morning. And see you again soon. Thanks. Have a nice day.
thanks, Arun.
Bye. Bye, Rizwan. Bye, Monal.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.